class.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Mr. Hunt, and what we'll be going over today is kind of a review and an extension of what we've been learning over the last couple of weeks, natural selection. We put together this PowerPoint with Ms. Medina. Alright, so class, before we learned about internal traits, and we saw that they are anything that we can see physically on the outside of organisms. Up here on the presentation, we have two species of salamanders that are found in Texas in this area. Now, at this time, I'm sorry. Let me pass out all your paperwork. So we actually have made an engagement guide to go along with this, so I'm just not talking to you all. Alright. So Chandler, what are features of organisms that are primarily sensory and generally measurable? What are they considered? One more time. What are features of an organism that are primarily sensory and generally measurable?
External traits.
External traits. Excellent. So up here we have two different species of salamander. Now class, can you please for a quick moment write down two external traits that you see between the salamanders? Is it lights? Can you guys see the, can you all see the,
Oh, that's way.
is this a projector?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Okay. And I would ask, is there variation between the salamanders? Provide evidence for your answer. I actually have one more question. For Whitney, thinking about this, would these two organisms, would you consider them the same species or different species?
By looking at them, I would think that
By their external traits.
I would think they were different species. Just because it looks like one of them doesn't have eyes and the other does. And then they just don't look alike.
They don't look alike? Exactly. Although these are both salamanders, they are two complete species. Like we said, one has eyes, one does not. One has colored pigment, another one has no pigment. Alright. So it wouldn't be necessarily considered variation between these two different salamanders since they are different species. But you could compare them since they're similar organisms, and you can use their internal traits to differentiate to see the differences between the two. Next, what we do have is variation between these two bluebonnets. We have a blue one and a red one. So these are the same species because they're the same plants. They have the same external features. They undergo the same growth cycle, but we have variation because of the external factors, one being red and another being blue. So that's an example of variation that we have gone through before. And that's our question for it. Next, we also know about behavioral traits. These are two species that you may be familiar with in the Texas area. One is the armadillo and another is rattlesnakes. Colin, what are some common behavioral traits that these two organisms exhibit when threatened?
The armadillo will roll up, and the snake will wind its head back.
Wind its head back. What other? Yes. Is there another particular behavioral feature that rattlesnakes are known to do?
Bite.
Okay. Yes. When threatened.
Oh, their tail will
Their
emit a sound.
Yes, they will rattle their tail. Alright, so these are behavioral traits that these two animals exhibit when threatened, and you might have seen these in real life. And are these behaviours beneficial to the survival of the armadillos and rattlesnakes? Please provide evidence for your answer using previous knowledge. So basically, does these behaviors these animals exhibit while threatened, does it help in its species survival? Are they beneficial? And we know this to be true because they wouldn't continue to have traits that were not beneficial to their survival, because traits, the offsprings that survive, the individuals that survive are the ones who produce offsprings, correct? And we learned that in previous lessons. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. So just finish jotting down your responses. So, but interesting enough, there's also other traits that help individuals survive. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go over our cooperative learning roles before we get started. We have our material managers, which always will pick up the materials and distribute them to their tables. We have the primary investigator that will read the directions to its group. We'll ask the instructor any questions that the group may have, and you will also keep time. Maintenance director will clean up, will direct the cleanup, dispose of cleanup materials, and is also responsible for the group safety. We don't have many safety protocols for this lab today, other than being sure to handle the beta fish with care. And the recorder will collect and record data, certify the recorded results, and report the results to the teacher when their turns, and we report the results to the class. So what we're going to do is get into our groups. First group will be Chandler, Sergio, Miguel, and Colin. Second group will be Whitney, Hannah, and Autumn. And third group will be Brianna and Cheyenne and Shalonda. Since Cheyenne is not with us today, Miguel, if you don't mind going to group 3, that'll be greatly appreciated, and you all can move now.
Squad group 3.
And those are also your roles. PIs for primary investigator, MN is for material manager,
Over here though.
RR, reporter, and MD, main. Excellent. So, before we get started, excuse me, ladies, can I have your attention? Bless it. Alright, so before we get started, we make sure to keep your area neat and organized throughout the lab. It'll help with safety purposes, and so you don't damage your exploration guides. Use the materials for their intended purposes. We have detailed instructions on exactly how to use all the materials today. Wait for the full instructions before starting. So do not read ahead or start the activity without getting permission to do so. Keep voices at an indoor level, shouldn't reach anywhere past level 1. And you'll have 20 minutes to complete the entire exploration guide. There are 2 activities, and we'll break them down accordingly. So the first activity is a beta test safety. It's a beta test, but we're going to go over safety first. All right. So we're going to be working with beta fish today. You've been exposed to them in the past. We're going to continue on with using beta fish because we believe that they're easily to handle. So what you do not want to do is open the container. Do not remove the beta from the container. Do not harm or hurt the beta with excessive tapping on the container. You are allowed to, if your beta is not moving, you're allowed to tap it, but do not do excessive tapping, please. And allow every group member time to view the beta during the exploration. So I don't want one person in the group just handling the beta. So everyone should have their equal opportunity to view the beta on their own. Alright, so you have 7 minutes to start your activity number 1. Alright. Oh, you actually have to do it. Any of you have any questions? I'll be walking around, so just let me know. Any clarification? Remember, there's 2 betas, so you can take turns.
So the color?
Oh, thanks. So the first part of the activity, you're just looking at some external traits. You've done this exercise before. What do y'all see so far? Different colors? Yeah, what colors? Yes. You necessarily don't have to find differences between the betas, you just need to look for different external traits of the beta. But we provided 2 betas just so you have different, you can see different variations between species. So we have colors of the scales that you can view.
Are you eating?
Anything else?
Is that not your cup of tea?
Remember, external traits are also structures or anything that you can see. That's a trait. That's a trait. You're able to see the yield?
Oh, this one? You can see it breathing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's color different size coins and then smoother look. Then look down and I was like pointing.
Good job, Dave. Nice. What happened?
Now, primary investigator.
Were you able to see any external feature that you wanted to view before? That was more apparent? That area, right?
Why you looking?
Yeah, closest to them.
Well, I mean, you're right. You can't say,
Okay. Yeah.
What's your evidence that it's external?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see them when did you get a chance to view them yet?
Yes.
Were you able to see, they were starved for space, so they eat when you were working?
They were starved for
Yeah.
Now I feel bad for them.
And it was that Miguel here.
My fingers are too big.
See how long you take that one to grill.
Can you put that in a more complete sentence? She said.
Those are brave.
In relation to the concepts we've been learning in class.
What? The external features?
Yeah, survival.
Sized her up.
Therefore not survive.
Right there
They
down.
still kind of, look at they bread.
O2 oxygen. What is O2?
Oh,
What does that mean?
yeah.
Oxygen? Two oxygens.
One more time, see, I repeat.
How would you explain that to them like a normal page? They're elements.
Elements that rub
That
together.
was 2-1.
A series of bonds.
Why does the beta need O2? Or what does it use?
And
What
he
does
spit
it
it
use
back out.
O2 for?
She made a beautiful habitat for them.
I'll accept that answer. That's pretty good. Don? That's pretty good.
I'm trying here, real hard.
I like that response.
See, but I think it's stuff that I have my favorite.
So y'all moving on? Nicely? So, were you able to see any pronounced external feature? So when it ate the gills were more noticeable? Yeah. Were you able to view them any other way? Any? Or did it seem like there's you know, without wiring up?
I used to try and hold my breath. Well, I still do this every time someone has a space or underwater.
So what's your phone number? What do you consider the gills to be? External or behavior? Or
Have you seen those free divers who are underwater? So, no.
What?
Yes. Yes, and he keeps
Okay,
diving
and
out, like, you have to go back up eventually.
where are the gills connected to the fish?
Foot gets caught.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you describe it to the jaw? Is it connected from the outside, inside?
Well, I mean,
Technically.
I suppose
I
inside.
jump in the water, but then I can't push myself off the bottom because it's stuck. And I'm like, I'll die.
So if you're not quite sure they're external or behavioral, there's options for
Join
either.
swim club, learn how to swim better.
Just provide your evidence. But I like your thinking. All right, class. Time's about up.
I'm thinking you got to pick
All
up.
right.
I'm thinking it's a fire.
All right, class. So our next activity, we saw in the first one, we looked at the betta fish and we saw some different mechanisms they use to breathe. Now, since we can't actually take the fish out of water to see if they can survive without survive outside the water, we're gonna mimic what may happen if we took them out of the water. So this next activity is called breathe in, breathe out. So each student will record how long they can hold their breath. Keep it. That being said, no student is allowed to hold their breath longer than 30 seconds. So the material director, please monitor this regulation. So at 35 seconds, if they're able to get to 35 seconds, cut them off, please. Recorder will keep track of time with phone or stopwatch. We were not able to acquire stopwatches, so the recorder, you are allowed to place your stopwatch on the material map. There is a place for that on the material map. And everyone must record the results and rotate responsibilities accordingly. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to teach you all the proper breath holding technique for this activity. What we're going to do, as demonstrated by the young lady in the picture, we're going to pinch our nose lightly. You don't pinch too hard, don't hurt yourself. Pinch your nose lightly and closing both nostrils. Close and seal your lips. Alright? Give a hearty thumbs up. So the maintenance director, the recorder/recorder will start begin the time. And the PI will watch for the proper technique. And if the PI sees that you either release your nose or open your mouth, they will stop the time. Alright? So the PI, you do have the ability to stop the time if you see the technique broken.
Should we start holding our breath at the end of an exhale or at the end of an inhale?
That is up to you. As long as the proper holding technique's in place, you record your time. Alright, so please Please everyone, do not argue about the results. We're just collecting data, alright?
Huh?
And for this activity, you do have 10 minutes. And we're gonna see.
Okay.
Alright? We're all ready to go? Do we have any questions or clarifications? Excuse me, class. Do we have any questions or clarification before the activity? Alright, I don't want anyone to hurt themselves or pass out, so please keep a watchful eye. Maintenance PIs. Alright, you can begin. Make sure to record your data in the table provided.
Ready?
Alright, ready?
So you going?
You want first?
Yeah.
Give me a thumbs up.
Let's see.
Are we ready? Okay. Hold on.
You're wasting all that oxygen.
We all have done this before, but I don't know when the last time, recently. And remember, we're doing this to mimic what the fish are undergoing when they're out in the water.
Talk out.
Time.
24.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I didn't really breathe in.
You didn't. So you
Alright, stop.
You're done talking. 35.
35 seconds. Good job.
You didn't even take a breath. You just kind of
Okay.
She sucks. You gotta give yourself a
It
thumbs up.
hasn't been.
I will
She's
give
a
it.
nurse, she's
Already
not
scheduled
closing.
useful
We're just
classes.
It'll come out through the high school. Okay, I'm just gonna breathe.
Sorry.
26.1.
I can't do it. I'm about to pass
Alright, ready for the champion?
26.1.
out.
Are you ready?
He's doing it.
Oh, you did it?
Sorry,
7
laughing.
seconds?
Who was you looking at?
And he did it.
7.51. Who was you looking at?
I just thought of something. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
Collins.
Wow, that was bad. 7.5. That was bad.
Hard.
That was really bad.
She broke the silk. She broke it. No, you opened your mouth.
7.5. Wow.
7.51.
It's around 30.
Oh,
No, I mean, I didn't say though. I mean, in that case, they did 0 seconds total.
I'll take the 10.5.
I did.
10 point.
That's part of the rules. That's part of the rules.
No, I know, but
10.95. I thought it was
it's just really bad over here.
Alright. Once you collect your data, continue on with your
Excel.
activity. Continue on with your exploration guide.
Alright, well,
I would
we
say
gotta create a chart.
the independent variable is capacity,
Based on the variables provided.
What are the variables provided? How big your nose is. I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Never mind. Where are they?
Remember,
So independent would be
so do you
time.
remember what the independent variable is?
I don't, but they said student.
So remember the independent variable is it's the variable that's being manipulated in the experiment.
No.
And then the dependent variable
No,
is
yeah.
your variable that's being manipulated.
Yeah, obviously.
On the breath.
Yeah.
Shining stars.
So this
It'll
is
be enough.
So yours is the.
student and this is the. Well, no, because we're not measuring.
Yours is work too. It's just you.
Are you measuring time or are you measuring, what are you measuring with time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Feet, exactly. Yeah.
We had a doctor too.
Be as specific as you can with your responses.
We should do this at 10.
I did it in 5.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because I got 7.
Well, you still would have been on the shot.
You sure that's
That's
the right way?
To do a draft or?
No, is that your independent variable?
What do you say this one?
He said the independent.
No, because your independent variable is the one that you're manipulating to cause the change in the independent variable. Is the result that has. So our variable, I guess, would be our student. So your students independent, they have different lung capacities, so they can have more, and that'll cause.
I appreciate the phone spell out.
Or the ability to
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Excellent.
That's just what, because you guys heard first,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So there's a third page to the activity.
Oh, no.
It continues on to the next page.
Me? What? Me?
I did it too. Yeah, I did some page one.
Start doing that here.
It makes sense, yeah.
Okay, what is the E? I'm gonna start with the range. Calculator. 17. Range is
Oh, yeah.
21.
So you three all have different graphs.
70.
You all want to talk it out to see which one's the correct independent variable?
Do you have the same one?
6
That
points.
Student breath.
Sorry, I heard our ad.
Not
That's why.
one's dependent, one's independent.
Is
The ability, so the breadth is based on what? Based on each
Yeah.
student's breadth.
It's okay.
It's law, right?
Sometimes I scoot it out. That's not advised.
Are we working?
I was waiting for the Einstein there to come up with the.
Oh, he's not responsible for coming up with a response.
Anatomy.
So I need both of you to work out the math.
26, right?
26 points.
Alright, my head, my mental math was. And the range was,
I'm coughing. Hard.
35 minutes.
Hey,
Should be
Thanks.
25.
And
you gave me a set.
4.05.
I'll drag y'all down so hard.
24.05.
I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
My day was here. You come into my life and just go, oh, you suck. Oh.
Alright, so what is it that you identify as being possible explanations for?
lung sizes.
You and me would die. Under 25 cents.
What?
From the second.
I'm just looking notes.
So which one of you ladies survived? You're able to read longer than 25 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually like 5 minutes, but I didn't want to be all waiting.
Yeah, thought it was a joke. I put wings on.
Breathing is a critical function for survival, correct?
Yes.
So would you consider that external?
Yeah. Neither.
That's something you have to know.
It's like neither because you don't. No, not all of them are required.
This guy.
Someone took it really good. Pretty short, so I was appreciative, so.
Then that word.
So who survived?
While breathing.
Me and Chandler.
You
Chandler
and
and I.
Yeah.
How long were you able to
Basically,
live?
if you think about
You had a range of 25 seconds. So that would be considered, what, using the terms that we know, what
but
would
they're
we call, what would that be called? The differences between variation on
frogs
individuals.
broken,
Exactly.
that's the mating behavior. But
Good job.
in the big
Or willpower.
picture, they know
Yes?
that
Surviving two days.
And for the two factors that you think are in
I
play,
guess that is
Talking about what?
that,
even though it's
what are two factors? Alright,
that is
People will
oh,
run out the door.
that's fun.
okay. So class, we just underwent the exploration. We saw, we tried to mimic what would happen if the betas were placed outside of the water. What we're gonna do now, I'm gonna turn it over to. Okay. It's not working. Alright, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Medina to go over the exploration that you all experienced.
Okay guys, so if you will take a look at your exploration, if we can go to the beta test questions and just start at number 1. What external structures are more noticeable as the beta consumes the bloodworms than before? Brianna?
The gills.
Alright. And how did they look whenever you fed them? Why would you say they were more noticeable?
We couldn't really see them before we fed them the worms. Whenever we fed them, they like flared out.
Okay. And that's right. When the beta consumes the worms, its mouth expands wide and its gills are more visible internally and externally. Alright, number 2. What function do gills perform for aquatic creatures? Autumn?
It helps them breathe.
Correct. Gills allow aquatic creatures to breathe in water. Number 3. Would you consider the beta's ability to breathe with its gills to be an external trait, a behavioral trait, or neither? Shalonda? Neither, and why is that?
Because it's not an external or behavior, it's something that they need to survive.
Do you think you could come up maybe with a word for that? Do you have any ideas?
I don't know, see this, I guess the physiological trait. I'm assuming, because it's internal.
Okay, internal. That's a good way to put it. Colin, what did you put for that?
Neither cannot be seen under normal conditions.
Okay. That's a good way to put it. Under normal conditions. And you guys are right, it's neither. You can see the gills on the outside, but the gills are also, they reach inside and they serve the function for breathing, so gills are the same thing as lungs for humans. And those lungs are on the inside, and the gills, like we said, although you can see them outside, they're not that noticeable, and they kind of serve, they're better observed when they're expanded, and typically when they're expanding is when the fish is breathing. So number 4, imagine removing the beta from the cup of water for an extended amount of time. What would you infer would happen to the beta's ability to breathe and ultimately its ability to survive? Miguel?
I wrote that they would not be able to breathe because they only live in water.
Alright, and so like based on our answer for the what function do gills serve for aquatic animals? Why not? Why would they not be able to breathe?
Because we don't have gills, but fish, all fish do, so they can help them in the water.
In the water, exactly. And so beta wouldn't be able to use their gills to breathe out of water. They would soon die or not survive because they do not have the proper internal features for that environment, the environment being outside of the water. Alright, and for the breathe in, breathe out activity, if you guys will go ahead and turn to those questions. Number 1, what were the variables for investigation? I'll have Chandler, if you can give me those.
Looking at the breath hold length, like how long you can hold your breath, and just the student. Like if you're student 1, student 2, student 3.
Which one was which?
Breath hold length is the dependent variable, and the student is independent.
Alright. So independent variable was the student, so it varied from student to student, and the dependent variable was the amount of time that your breath was held. Alright, number 2. How could you account for the differences in the amount of time that each student could hold their breath? State at least 2 factors. If I can have Sergio, if you can tell me 2 factors.
Lung capacity and the size of the breath.
The size of the breath? Okay, that's a good one. What about Hannah? What are 2 factors that you put down?
Different lung sizes and size of breath taken.
Cool. Alright. One more. Whitney.
Same thing.
I wrote
The same thing? Okay. Well, yeah, there's different things. You guys did say lung size. Lung size is one of them. Sex, your gender, whether you're male or female. Anatomically, lung sizes are different between sexes. So also your breath holding technique. So whether you held your breath on an inhale or an exhale. Also maybe like a psychological thing, like what were you thinking about? That could definitely have something to do with it.
So I got you.
Yeah.
Alright, number 3. Which students, if any, would be able to survive under these conditions? The conditions being not being able to breathe. And how does water affect the student's ability to breathe? If I can have Chandler, what were your answers?
I said that the water, well, we wouldn't be able to breathe because we don't have gills.
Okay,
So the water would kill us.
alright. There you go. That's a good one. Putting it nice and simple. So the students that would be able to survive are the students that can hold their breaths for 25 seconds or more. So raise your hand really fast if you were able to survive. Alright, cool guys. And as Chandler said, humans aren't suited for aquatic environments and we would not survive. The water would fill your lungs and it would drown you. Okay, so recall what an external characteristic is. Just think about that from your previous lessons. And Colin, what would you define an external characteristic? How would you define that?
Any feature that can be seen on the outside of an organism.
Okay, that's a good one. And Hannah, what would be your definition?
A visible feature or characteristic or trait of an organism.
Alright, so our definition, number 1, is any observable or measurable physical characteristic that an organism possesses. So again, observable physical characteristic, so it can be seen on the outside. And give you guys a little bit more time to write that down. Alright, someone tell me some examples of external characteristics that we've seen, any others that you know, any from the previous lessons or anything. Sergio?
Color, texture, weight, stuff like that.
Okay. And Miguel, any others?
Size.
Nice. Okay. Okay, so some examples are your hair color, hair type, whether you have hair, color in general, color of the apples that we've seen, the betta fish, whether you have wings, fins, legs, claws, the size of the organism, the shape of it, anything like shells or beaks, feathers instead of hair, those types of things. They're all examples of external characteristics. All right. And, oops, just kidding. Okay, so the traits that we looked at today, they are not external. They're actually kind of the opposite of that. You could call them internal. And as we've discussed, some of the traits are, if Brianna, if you can tell me some of the traits, internal traits that we've looked at.
The gills, like the ability to breathe.
Okay. So whether you have gills or lungs. All right. What about Autumn? What are some internal traits
That we observed.
that we observed, or any others that you can think of?
Eating, yes, we observed eating. Digesting.
Digesting. Okay. There we go. Eating itself isn't an external trait. All right. And so another word for that is actually physiological traits, or like I said, internal traits. And they're a characteristic of or appropriate to an organism's healthy or normal functioning. And the Spanish word is características fisiológicas. Anyone not done writing that? Okay. So, both physical, external, and physiological refer to bodies. Physical means the body itself, while physiological refers to the body's functions. So anything inside of the body, as Autumn said, digestion, as we've observed today, the ability to breathe, the way you breathe, so gills or lungs. And some examples of that is how we've seen humans aren't suited for aquatic environments. So humans have lungs, and so we have to breathe in air. On the contrary, fish have gills, and they have to breathe inside of the water. They can't survive for very long outside of the water. Okay, so go ahead and discuss with your group members if you can identify the different physiological traits that we saw in beta test and in breathe in, breathe out. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to discuss those.
Would be the gills.
Circulation system There's also respiratory system, because if you actually don't breathe, it's either a built thing that's like a damage
Just some examples.
Okay. For the test, it's just like you I don't think you put them off. You do put it up respiration. As long as still
Okay, so let me have the reporter from this group back here go ahead and tell me what you think some of the physiological traits for beta tests were.
The gills, the ability to breathe in water.
Okay. What about this group right here? The reporter, if you can tell me the physiological traits for breathe in, breathe out.
Lungs, the active breathing
All right.
for humans.
What about this third group? Do you have any others for different ones for either one of them? Beta test or breathe in, breathe out?
I believe if it was not covered, digesting.
Digesting? Okay, there you go. That's good. So for beta test, the gills of the fish are internal. And so this affects the way that they breathe and the environment that they're able to breathe in. And for breathe in, breathe out, your lungs are also internal, and this affects the way that you breathe and the environment that you can breathe in. So on land, or you're breathing air, oxygen. Okay, and so some other examples are in a dog. Dogs have an incredible sense of smell, as you guys might have seen in cartoons or movies. There's often like hunting dogs or police dogs that are in there, and their incredible sense of smell helps them find food, avoid anything that may be dangerous to them. And so when air enters a dog's nose, it splits into two different flow paths, one for smell and one for breathing. So this helps with their ability to breathe, or to smell better. And they also have an extra organ for smell that humans don't have, and this is another reason that they are able to smell better. And so their heightened sense of smell is a physiological feature that helps them to survive. Again, to find food or to avoid anything that may be dangerous to them. Versus us, although we can smell, sometimes it's hard to smell certain things, and we don't really use it necessarily to avoid anything that may be dangerous to us. Another example is the corpse flower. It's the biggest flower in the world, and it reaches amazing sizes, which is an external trait. It's also known to be one of the worst smelling flowers. The smell is described as rotting flesh, and the awful smell helps attract flies that help the flower pollinate. So it's trying to survive, and flies help it pollinate, and it uses the smell to attract the flies. And the physiological trait here is the internal mechanism that allows it to produce the bad smell. Another example will be the difference between cold-blooded animals and warm-blooded animals. So for cold-blooded animals, the body temperature depends on whether it's cold or hot outside. It'll have a body temperature that's warmer when it's warmer outside, or colder when it's colder outside. And in warm-blooded animals, body temperature stays the same when it's cold or hot outside. This does, though, depend on the species, its range that it can keep that body temperature at. And so that is its different physiological feature, or a physiological feature that differs between warm-blooded animals and cold-blooded animals. All right, so if you guys will turn to your elaboration guide, and if I can have the materials manager come up here and pick up a game board, a die, and the pieces.
Wait, do they not need more than one? Or more than two? Or three pieces?
Here. Go ahead. Just grab them.
So this is a two-player game.
Well, one of us is getting excluded. Or is the dice roller?
Or the dice roller.
Y'all are together, so we'll all be excluded from the dice.
Let's go.
Okay, last in the group. So, if I can have you guys' attention, please. Alright, so this is actually a two-player game. You guys are going to be in partners. I will tell you who your partner is in just a second. So the rules for this is one player will be the snake and one player will be the mouse. The snake will roll a die and move according to the legend on your exploration guide. If the snake catches the mouse, the snake survives. If the mouse makes it back to the burrow, the mouse survives. You will play the game 4 times and record the survivor each time. You will switch roles after each trial. So whoever's the snake the first time will be the mouse the second time, and vice versa. So these are your partners. If you guys will go ahead and get with your partner, make sure everyone has a game board, game pieces, and a dice.
Oh, Cheyenne's not here. Just come on.
Okay, so Cheyenne isn't here. Brianna, if you'll just go ahead and join Sergio and Chandler.
We can just, we've got even
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
4, 8, no, there's
Paul's here.
9. Yeah. There, yeah, there's 9.
Alright.
I need to put the word about you.
We probably have
Okay,
more.
he would do it for bathroom.
Okay, so your cooperative learning 10s are at your tables. You do have a new role in your partner group, so if you'll go ahead and take a look at your role.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are gonna have 5 minutes to play this game.
Alright.
Ready, set, go.
What are we saying? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
who rolls first?
3 times, which goes for survivor.
Yeah, we start.
3, 4, 5.
Exactly.
It's because the mouse is gonna get that.
To the
So,
board.
okay.
We take turns. You start as a mouse, roll the dice, and see where you're like at. And then the snake's gonna roll the dice. Let's say you get to that shit.
So,
You see that?
at the last,
I didn't roll.
the mouse makes 2 spaces.
Oh, okay, true. The mouse moves every.
So, I guess
Literally have
and then
6 chances of
rolling
winning.
No, because.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
No, wait.
Yes, I'm going to argue.
That's for snakes, because you're cold blooded.
Yeah.
Dead.
Where's your mom?
So
Terribly
your partner and you guys are playing.
And I'll read one.
Alright.
And so,
Well, is it 3 and 5?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, so I'm working.
yeah, 2.
No matter what. Do you roll?
So I start with
You roll, you just roll
green. So you ready?
I'm
Survivor is
one.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
So,
Oh, no. Then
What happens is yeah, am I still dead? But yeah, the mouse still the snake got it.
just one space, yeah.
Well,
I guess think about
they're
it.
It might be like.
you never know.
It's a cold thing.
It's a cold day. I don't like this.
Or is it just starting?
I don't like this.
Yeah, I think that to make this game a little bit better. One space on cold days.
So the mouse moves to the corner.
2 to 4.
I started at
Or no, 2 to 3.
Okay, just do whole 32.
Yeah, it's a cold day. Do I go to sleep this time?
No, just 2.
No, it's
Unless you gas roll either a 3, anything above a 3.
Then that means I got.
Oh, yeah.
Like in that situation.
I won this time.
You wanna go?
I'll just
Yeah.
go for you.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So the bonds.
Can
Make this here's the thing that's like, yeah.
Yeah, in the mouth. So you and I just do one.
Ooh.
You guys have about 2 minutes. Don't forget to get your questions.
But you made it though.
Yeah, I already made it.
Yeah.
Let's do it, okay.
Well, minute.
So one more time.
So snake with best day race survivor on.
Yeah, you have to be like.
Yeah, it would be 5 to 6, yeah.
Which one?
Lucky number is
6.
5 numbers.
So I'm the snake.
Okay. 1, 2,
Okay,
I
cool.
mean, another one,
Do another 6.
One, two.
We're about to get you right here. About to get you.
Oh man, full day.
Wait.
I wanna say ability to move.
Oh, the same language
I would say, I thought they would be
I shouldn't have volunteered to be a snake.
Yeah.
First of all, you know that snake will get you.
Yeah.
Will get you.
Oh yeah.
It's going to get you. So under which condition is the snake?
Yeah, so
It's
every time, I would think that
It would be good, it would be better on a warm day.
just have
Yeah.
to snake move in one space, just
For us,
because
it'd be
snake wins every time.
no warm or hot.
Because he has a
Well, I'm in
4%
for number
chance of
2.
moving more than one space and catching up to.
Cause no matter what the mouse moves to,
Okay.
it's space is not
Just-
Because snakes are cold blooded, so they plant depending on the outside.
Oh, yeah, it looks back, it looks back.
That's probably the key word. I'll see if maybe
Who's
it's
first?
that would be the only. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over our answers. What you guys got. Answers do vary between between groups. Since we did play different games and get different results. But for number 1, under which conditions was the snake best able to survive? Provide evidence for your answer. If I can get Sergio to go ahead and give me what your group got for that one.
For number 1, right?
Yes.
The snake survived in warm and hot temperatures.
Alright, what's your evidence?
The snake caught the mouse under those conditions.
Okay. Alright, so I want to know what happened for your team. Under which conditions was the snake best able to survive?
I said it best survive on a warm day. It didn't survive, because it never, ours never won.
Our mouse survives every time.
Okay.
Survived every time, but I said it would be better on the warm days. 'Cause that's when they can move.
And so, number 2, under which conditions was the mouse best able to survive? You said provide evidence for your answer. Chandler?
It was best able to survive on cold days, because that's when it could outrun the snake.
Alright. What's your, oh, you said because it's best, that's when it could outrun the snake. Alright, Colin, what about your team? What did you guys get?
Same situation, cold days, because the mouse can still move faster than the snake.
Alright. And number 3, what traits does the snake and mice display during the activity? If I can get Hannah, what's your answer for that one?
Warm-bloodedness versus cold-bloodedness,
Alright, and what did we say that those were?
physiological traits.
Perfect. And let me just clarify, these traits don't happen by chance. You guys might be, might give the impression by that since we are using die, but the chance here is the weather. The die are regulating the weather and not the, what the snake and the mice, are doing internally. Their ability to regulate temperature or which conditions they survive under it. And so like I said, each team did get different results depending on how the weather in your little world happened that day. So, but you guys are correct. The snake is better able to survive in warm weather because as we said, it will, it being warm-blooded is that physical trait that helps it survive. And the mouse, on the other hand, doesn't regulate that temperature, it does regulate that temperature, whether it's cold or it's hot outside, so it can function in either warm weather or cold weather. Alright, and now it's time to show off your knowledge. You guys are going to do the evaluation. If you'll go ahead and turn to that. This is independent. You are not working with your partners or your groups to answer any of these questions.
We go to Usher.
stop this time?
What's that?
Do we stop this?